So I thought I'd come for a walk. I've pretty much finished what I need to do for the day. I was just quickly checking my email and Facebook as you do while I was on this walk. I'm just kind of walking past this lovely little canal near me, and there's an interesting article on iPads and the effect on children, and how iPads now are being used as almost in a sense as pacifiers because parents don't want to address the underlying issues or the tantrum that the child is having, and the fact that we really have no idea what the long-term effect will be of this technology upon our children and going forward in our future as well. I remember watching this advert many years ago. It was like a black and white advert, and it was done in the 60s, and it was how automation and computers would improve our world. And it was a beautiful advert because in this brave new world, we were all working 3 days a week, and we were fishing most days. And life was wonderful because automation had made life easier. The original premise for the computer as well, when it first came out, was that we would then start working in a paperless environment. And yet, if we look at it now, there's just as much paper as there are computers. And as technology kind of gets faster, and we're looking at things like AI, the whole premise of this was meant to make our lives more convenient and easier. Seems to be a bit of a lie. It seems to be something that's being seen through. So you've got people kind of working record numbers of hours, fantastic amounts of money is being made, and we are physically and materially advancing as a people, but spiritually we seem to have in a sense gone backwards. And what we're seeing is with these record levels of stress and depression and obesity, that people are basically trying to use what they've used before, the techniques and the methods that they were taught, in order to try and basically cope in this enhanced world. There's a great line in Ocean's 12 where one of the characters turns around to the heroes and he goes, look, you're analog players in a digital world. And that seems to be happening for a lot of us. We all seem to be analog players in a digital world. And as technology seems to kind of, in a sense, keep, increasing further and further and further, a lot of us are starting to feel this agitation and this stress because of the fact that we're having such a hard time keeping up. So what's a way to, in a sense, keep up? And what's a way to, in a sense, live your life in the best possible way? And the answer really lies within yourself. Even within the whole mindfulness and spiritual industry, we're still looking for answers outside ourselves. We're looking for answers in our benevolent gods, in our teachers, in technology, believing that the next thing will make things better for us. And nothing could be further from the truth. It's not going to. And until you look inwards and see that you have the coping mechanisms to live your life in the best possible way, what will happen is you're always going to be caught up in somebody else's version of truth, somebody else's version of what is right, and you're always going to be like that gerbil on that, little merry-go-round thing or whatever they do, running faster and faster, trying to make sense of it all. Even somebody watching this video who's seeking is trying to make sense of something that I'm saying, believing that somehow it's going to give them peace of mind, or they're going to hear that next little bit of nugget. You're not. Sorry to burst your bubble. However, you will find the answers when you look inside. As I said to somebody yesterday, if the question has arisen in you, if that stress and agitation has arisen in you, and that depression has arisen in you, then inevitably the answer's inside you as well. All you've got to do is look. Now that can be sometimes for some people a horrible process, because it basically means unplugging from a lot of things. So putting down that phone or turning off that TV, and spending a bit of time in solitude, a bit of time in nature. And at the same time, it can be scary, and we don't want to do that because we're conditioned to live this 24-hour culture. I'm a victim of it as much as everybody else. We were constantly checking our Snapchat, our Twitters, our Facebooks, and all of that stuff. And even now, disconnecting and going into nature has been turned into a technique. I'm grounding, or I don't know, I'm walking in nature. And the way you cope with all of this is just intuitively be as you are. If you look at some of the greatest people in society, they were very deeply spiritual people, in the sense that they spent a lot of time in nature. They spent time out and thought about things. We are being conditioned not to think. Everything's being given to us in a bite size. I see even in talks, people come along and it's a case of, heard about this thing called realization. I have 10 minutes, impress me. And it's like, well, the first thing you need to do is calm down. You need to really calm down, and you stop that, because we are living in this like 24-hour ego kind of a culture, and it's not really serving us in any way, sense of the word. And the way we would cope with this is by trusting ourselves, because the mechanisms to cope with increased change are within you. When you become confident and you start trusting what you truly are as a person, what you'll see then, there you go, recording videos as people are kind of cycling past. What you would then see is that the limits that you're working with at this moment in time aren't actually real. You are actually so much more than what you see yourself to be. But it's quite simple. Ask yourself these questions like, who am I? What is this all about? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I actually kind of getting any joy or any pleasure out of what I'm doing? And if so, if I'm not, how can I make a change? And if there's fear, then well, why is that fear there? So, there are people now leaving jobs. There are people now, looking to live more holistically and stuff. And that's another trap there, because the first thing we want to do is we want to approach living in a much more authentic way, the same way we've approached our work lives, looking for methods, techniques, apps, videos, books and everything. And you'll do the gambit, you'll do the gambit. I did it myself. You'll watch YouTube videos like this one, you'll go see teachers, and you'll be looking for something, and nothing will really resolve itself until you look inwards. So as I say to people, teachers, books, all of this stuff, inevitably in the end it becomes a crutch to you. You've got to go inwards, you've got to get serious. If this is open to everybody, if this reality that is life, this thing called realization is open to everybody, why is it that we've not got record numbers of people just waking up and actually really affecting change? And it's quite simple. We just don't want to look inwards. We want somebody else to give us our solutions. And it's something that's happened to us from years and years and years and years of conditioning. So it's not something that's going to go overnight. So somebody barking at you that you just need to wake up right now, it's probably not going to be your cup of tea. That's where the internal dialogue of you actually asking yourself as to why you're doing this, why life is working the way it is, becomes really important. Because then you yourself know why you're playing the role you're playing, you yourself know why you're playing the game that you're playing, and you yourself will know when to push yourself and be hard on yourself, and when to just kick back and relax. It's called intuition, it's called trusting, it's called knowing. But unfortunately, because we've been told how to act and behave, even the whole idea of realization, there's an image which then forms in the mind. So you would reject truth anyway because it didn't go with the image. That it can happen to some dark-skinned fellow sitting under a tree or under a mountain in India somewhere, but it couldn't happen to somebody sitting here. You can't realize yourself. And the thing is what happens then is you're constantly, in a sense, chasing this experience, this knowing, whatever you want to call it, which you yourself will put into the future, because it's okay for them, but it's not for you. But why isn't it for you? And that's where you've got to answer these simple, in a sense, questions, and actually have a real conversation with yourself. Have you ever really, in a sense, talked to yourself? And I'm not talking about, like aloud walking down the street, because that's the quickest way to get yourself committed. What I'm talking about is actually just being authentic as to actually what you are, and what you actually really want. Because we can go through lifetimes, and we can go through a life living for everybody else just to get that feeling one day of like, oh, where's it all gone? And the regret that's going to happen there, yes, it's good in a sense, because it can be a catalyst for change. But if you can save yourself and you pain on this path, then why would you not? So be authentic, be real. Ask yourself these questions and actually look to answer them as well. It's all very well fashioning questions like, who am I, or what do I want? But actually sit down and take the time to answer these questions. You'll be so much the better off for it.